Usually when we sit down for one of these deep dives, I've got pretty contained topic in front of me.
Right.
We're talking about semiconductor supply chains or maybe, a new study on longevity science. It's usually clinical. But today feels different.
It feels a little less like a science journal and a little more like the opening scene of a geopolitical thriller, doesn't it?
Honestly, it really does. It is Saturday, January 17, 2026. And if you're listening, you've probably already seen the alerts blowing up your phone. We're looking at breaking reports from the AP, Time, The Guardian, all dropping just in the last few hours. And the headline is, well, it's one of those where if I hadn't checked 3 sources, I'd think it was a prank.
It's definitely not a prank. The headline is that Donald Trump has officially tied the acquisition of Greenland to punitive tariffs on European allies.
And I just want to be really clear for everyone because I had to read this twice myself. We're not talking about a tweet.
No.
Or some kind of vague threat at a rally. We're talking about hard numbers filed with the trade representative.
That's right. The reports are citing an immediate 10% tariff right now on 8 specific European countries. And there's a kicker, a very clear threat to crank that up to 25% if they continue to oppose U.S. control of Greenland.
So, of course, the internet is having a field day. I've seen all the memes about real estate deals, make Greenland green again, that whole thing. But our mission here is to look past the memes.
Right.
We've got a huge stack of analysis, legal, military, economic, and when you actually dig in, it is not funny. This feels like a massive pivot.
It is a pivot. And if you only focus on the buying Greenland part, the real estate angle, you kind of miss the actual story.
Okay.
What we are witnessing, according to the analysis we've pulled, is what foreign policy experts are already calling a credible alliance stress test.
A stress test.
Think about it. We're moving from a world where Greenland is a strategic interest, something the U.S. watches, to a world where the U.S. is using economic coercion against treaty allies to demand territory. That is a fundamental rewrite of the transatlantic relationship.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for just a second, because I think a lot of people might be thinking this.
Sure.
The U.S. is the biggest economy. We pay the most for NATO. We basically underwrite their security. So if the administration decides Greenland is vital for our safety, why shouldn't we use our leverage? Why is this being framed as such a disaster?
And that is the trillion-dollar question. It's exactly what we need to unpack. Because the answer isn't about, being nice or diplomatic protocol. It's about whether the strategy actually works.
Or if it just blows up in our face.
Exactly. Or if it leaves us less safe than when we started.
So here's our roadmap for today. We have a lot to get through. First, we're going to look at the reality of the island itself. Can you even legally just, buy Greenland in 2026?
And second, the strategic why. Do we actually need to own the deed to the land to keep America safe?
Spoiler alert on that one.
The research suggests we might be breaking the lock to a door that's already wide open for us.
And third, and this is the part that really jumped out at me, we have to talk about the blowback. Not a hot war, not even a full trade war, but something analysts are calling soft decoupling.
Right. How do allies hit back without sort of making a big scene?
The what if America gets cut out scenario.
And it is much more realistic than I think people realize.
Okay, let's dive in. Part 1, the president wants to buy Greenland. Denmark says no. My first, most basic question is Greenland like a used car? Is it an asset Denmark can even sell?
See, that's where the whole deal logic just runs headfirst into constitutional reality. And it's nuanced. You have to look at the history a bit.
Okay.
Greenland is not just some block of ice that Copenhagen owns. It is a self-governing territory.
Right. The sources mention a couple of key dates. 1979 was one.
1979 was Home Rule. That was the first big step away from just being a colony. But the really critical one, the one that makes this whole purchase idea legally impossible, is 2009.
The Self-Government Act.
Exactly. That act explicitly recognizes the Greenlandic people's right to self-determination. It deepened their self-rule. So, yes, Copenhagen still handles foreign policy and defense.
Which is why the U.S. is aiming the threats at Denmark.
Right. But the actual power, the decision about the future of the island, that belongs to the people who live there.
So let's trace that out. When the U.S. tells Denmark, sell us Greenland or we tax your cheese, They're not just asking for a signature.
Exactly. They are asking the Danish government to just override the democratic legitimacy of the Greenlandic government. They're asking Denmark to violate its own laws.
Oh, wow.
You can't just sell a self-governing people because a third party threatens you. It is, constitutionally illegal in Denmark.
Which makes the whole ultimatum feel, I don't know, confusing. If Denmark literally can't do it, why push so hard? Is there something military there we desperately need? I mean, the Arctic is melting, shipping lanes are opening up.
The strategic panic is real, and the location is absolutely key.
Yeah.
If you look at a map from the North Pole down, Greenland is the gatekeeper.
It's right in the middle of everything.
It dominates the polar route. But here is the paradox, and this was the aha moment for me in all the research.
Okay.
We don't need to buy it to use it.
We don't?
No.
Oh.
The U.S. already has what the sources call critical defense infrastructure on the ground. We have for decades. You've heard of Pacific Space Base.
That's the one they used to call Thule, right? Way, way up north.
That's the one. It is massive. It's our northernmost military installation. It's a frontline node for missile warning, missile defense, space surveillance.
So if a missile comes over the pole...
Pacific sees it first. It is absolutely vital.
Okay, so we're already there. We have the keys to the house.
We have the keys. We have boots on the ground. The radars are spinning 20/47. And it's not based on a handshake. It's all governed by the 1951 Defense of Greenland Agreement. It's embedded in NATO.
So let me get this straight. We have the base, we have the treaty, we have the access. Why on earth would we blow up the alliance to buy the land underneath the base?
That is the strategic tragedy of this news. The analysis suggests that by trying to force ownership, the U.S. is, well, it's actually risking the very access it already has.
How so? If we're powerful enough, can't we just make them let us stay?
Well, think about how a base like that works. In a remote, hostile environment, it relies on legal frameworks, supply lines, and frankly, political goodwill from the host nation. If you start threatening the landlord with economic ruin, you are not making your lease more secure. You're destabilizing the very legal structure that lets you be there.
It's like telling your landlord you're going to slash their tires if they don't sell you the apartment,
Easy.
even though you already have a rent-controlled lease for life.
That is actually a perfect analogy. You are trading secure legal access for a hostile takeover attempt. And that brings us to the second part of our deep dive, the alliance stress test.
Right, because this is about way more than just Denmark.
It's a message to all of NATO. It's a shift in norms. NATO, and really the whole Western alliance, it operates on a baseline of trust. The assumption is we settle disputes in conference rooms.
Not by holding a gun to an ally's economy.
Exactly.
But we've had trade disputes before, right? Tariffs on steel, aircraft subsidies. The Europeans tax our tech companies. How is this different?
The difference is the linkage. Before, we'd say we're taxing your steel because you're dumping cheap steel.
Yeah.
It was trade for trade.
Right, a logical connection.
Here, we're saying we're taxing your economy because you won't give us your sovereign territory. That reframes the relationship from partners with disagreements to, well, hostage and captor.
And what does that do to the other allies, the ones who aren't Denmark?
It forces them to start hedging.
Hedging? I hear that word in finance. What does it mean in geopolitics?
It's a very similar idea. If you can't rely on the U.S. to be a predictable partner, if you think they might slap a tariff on you next week over something totally unrelated, you start to hedge. You prepare politically and industrially for America to be the problem.
Not the solution.
Not the solution.
And in the Arctic, specifically, I have to imagine the Russians and Chinese are watching this very closely.
Oh, they're loving this. The immediate risk is Arctic fragmentation. You see, ideally, you want a coordinated posture, the U.S., Canada, the Nordics, all one unit, one shield.
But if crust collapses...
You get duplication. Everyone builds their own shield.
Yeah.
You get parallel command structures. Denmark might stop sharing the full intelligence picture with the U.S. because who knows how we'll use it as leverage.
That is terrifying. It's not even about a war starting. It's about the machinery of the alliance just rusting shut because nobody wants to share the oil.
Precisely. The first thing to break isn't peace. We're not talking about an invasion. What breaks is efficiency.
What do you mean?
Permissions. Overflight rights. Oh, sorry. You want to fly a bomber over Greenland? We'll have to review that permit. Might take 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The friction just increases.
And friction in a crisis can be deadly.
It can get people killed.
Okay, so that's the military side, the kinetic risk. But I want to pivot to the money. You mentioned hedging, and the sources have this section called "What if America gets cut out?"
Yeah.
Which It sounds ominous.
It is, but we need to be realistic about it.
So, straight question. If the U.S. applies these tariffs, do they just stop buying American stuff? A total boycott. I'm looking at my phone, my computer. Our supply chains are so global.
You're right. And the short answer is no. A total immediate trade halt is very unlikely. The supply chains are just too sticky.
Okay.
You can't just turn off the tap on American software or pharmaceuticals overnight. Europe needs Microsoft and Pfizer as much as we need them.
So no sudden economic death, no empty shelves tomorrow.
No. But what the sources are describing is something called soft decoupling. And honestly, that is much harder to fix than a boycott because it happens quietly.
Soft decoupling. Walk me through that. Give me an example.
Okay. Let's say you're a European government, Germany, France.
Sure.
You need to upgrade your fighter jet fleet for the 2030s. It's a huge contract, tens of billions of dollars.
Right.
Historically, you probably look at Lockheed Martin or Boeing first. Interoperability with the U.S. military is the gold standard.
Sure. Buy American, stay compatible.
But now, the U.S. has proven to be volatile. You've got this tariff threat hanging over you. So you engage in what the sources call Pathway 1, procurement shifts.
You just pick someone else.
You pick the safe option, you go with the Eurofighter, or you partner with the UK and Japan on their new jet. You don't even hold a press conference saying, we hate America. You just adopt a supplier of last resort logic.
Meaning you only buy from the U.S. if you have no other choice.
Exactly, because you can't risk your parts supply getting cut off in 5 years because the president wants to buy the Azores or something.
So American companies lose these massive multi-billion-dollar contracts, but nobody even realizes it's happening until the quarterly reports come out years later.
It's quiet, and it's durable.
Really?
Once those 10-year contracts are signed with a European firm, that market share is gone. You can't get it back with a nice speech.
That's the quiet shift. The sources also mentioned targeted retaliation. That sounds a lot louder.
That's Pathway 2, and it's the political response. If the U.S. hits Europe with a 10% tariff, European leaders have to look tough. They can't just take it. But they won't tariff everything. They'll be surgical.
Like what? In the past, it was always like bourbon and blue jeans.
Historically, yes. Target swing states to inflict political pain. But now, in 2026, the analysis points to digital taxes and data restrictions.
Ooh, hitting big tech?
Exactly. Imagine stricter customs inspections for American digital goods, or restrictions on sensitive data exports to U.S. servers because they're suddenly deemed unsafe. Well, think about it. If the U.S. government is willing to extort an ally, can a European hospital trust its patient data on a server in Virginia? Maybe not. So they pass data localization laws.
So the pain is sectoral. It hurts specific industries, tech, pharma intensely, even if the total trade numbers look okay.
Right. You hurt the donors and the stock market darlings to create pressure back in Washington. And then there's Pathway 3, the slow burn, financial de-risking.
This sounds like what the lawyers get into.
It is. It's about legal venue.
Yeah.
If you're a European company doing a joint venture with an American one, you used to be happy having the contract governed by New York law. Now, you might demand the factory be built in Europe under European law so you can seize it if things go south.
So it's basically treating the United States like a risky emerging market.
That's the danger.
Yeah.
Like, we're a banana republic where the rules might change on a whim. It adds a premium, a risk premium, to every single deal involving America.
So let's look forward a bit, the medium-term future. If this policy sticks, where are we in, say, 3 or 4 years?
The picture the analysis paints is of a Europe-first Arctic.
Meaning Europe just goes it alone?
Not entirely alone, but without the U.S. at the head of the table. Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, they expand coordination among themselves. They set the shipping rules, they build the infrastructure. The U.S. becomes just another participant, not the keystone.
We get demoted.
Effectively. And combined with that, you have this U.S. risk premium.
Which is what you were just getting at.
Exactly. It's a mix of consumer sentiment and business logic. If European consumers are angry and European businesses are scared of sanctions, doing business with America just gets more expensive, more complicated.
It's brand damage. America. Great products, but comes with a side of geopolitical drama.
And within NATO itself, even if the treaty survives on paper, and it probably will, nobody wants to tear up Article 5.
Just remind everyone what Article 5 is.
It's the core promise. An attack on one is an attack on all. Musketeer oath.
Yeah. Right.
The analysis says that stays on paper. But the operational reality just degrades. You get coalitions within the coalition.
Small groups of friends who trust each other, but don't share with the rest of the class.
Exactly. Slower intel sharing. Less political will for joint deployments. It's a hollowed-out alliance. The shell is there, but the inside is empty. and that makes the whole world less stable.
It's so sobering. You know, when I saw the headline, I thought, okay, here we go, another wild news cycle. But when you lay it out, the stakes are just incredibly high. We're gambling the security architecture of the last 80 years for, like, what, a piece of real estate?
That is the question. We think of sovereignty as lines on a map, but this shows it's also about economic coercion and the breaking point of alliances.
So to recap for everyone listening, because we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We started with the news, the ultimatum. Buy Greenland or face tariffs? We learned that Greenland isn't for sale. It's a self-governing territory, and Denmark legally can't force them to say yes.
And we learned that the U.S. doesn't even need to own it. We have Pacific space base. We have the access. And this strategy threatens the very framework that keeps that base secure.
And then we looked at the blowback, the soft decoupling. Allies won't stop trading with us tomorrow, but they will quietly start moving their contracts, their jets, their data centers, their future away from the U.S.
We risk becoming the supplier of last resort, the partner you only call when you have absolutely no other choice.
Which brings us to the end, and we always like to leave you with one final thought.
Right. For me, the most provocative idea here isn't the tariffs themselves. Tariffs come and go. It's the timeline of trust.
What do you mean by that?
The real danger isn't that Europe stops trading with us next week. It's that these things, these big projects, operate on 10 or 20-year cycles. If we break that trust now, in 2030 or 2035, when the next generation of defense networks are being built, the U.S. might not even be invited to the meeting.
We won't even know we lost the bid because we won't be asked to bid.
Exactly. We become too risky a partner. And you have to ask yourself, what is the cost of sovereignty when the price you pay is the currency of trust? You can buy land, maybe, but you can't buy back an ally's trust once you've sold it for leverage.
That is a heavy thought for a Saturday, but a necessary one.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for listening to The Deep Dive. We will keep tracking this story as it all unfolds. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Take care, everyone.